Welcome to the Wired for Success podcast, your show for ambitious, mission-driven entrepreneurs who want to build million-dollar businesses without sacrificing their health, relationships, or happiness, who understand that in order to build their empire, they need a solid foundation, and that the more they are thriving, the more their business is thriving too. This show brings you the very best from science, self-development, and entrepreneurship to set you up for sustainable success. Hi, I'm Claudia Garbutt, the scientist turned mindset and high-performance coach for entrepreneurs, and I help you get wired for success. Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Wired for Success podcast, where we talk about all things science, self-development, and entrepreneurship that help you get to that next level of success in your life and business. It's time for another exciting interview episode. And today I'm bringing you founder, entrepreneur, telehealth consultant, pain specialist, photographer, ultramarathoner, and author, Dr. Amy Novotny. And I'm really looking forward to this interview because it sounds like we not only use some of the same methods with our clients, but we also share some of the same passions as running and photography. So welcome, Amy, and thank you so much for being on my show today.
Thank you for having me, Claudia. It's an honor to be here, and I'm excited to get to know you better as well.
No, awesome. So, Amy, if you've listened to any of my past podcast interview episodes, you probably know what I'm about to ask you next. So I always like to start our conversations by talking a bit about your personal and professional background so that our listeners understand where you're coming from and what experiences have shaped your life so far. So can you please tell us a bit about your background and what key elements or epiphanies have led you to this point in your life?
Yeah, sure. So I've had kind of that long, windy, twisted background, and I started off loving life and going into biology and ecology, but then ending up doing a doctorate in physical therapy because I became fascinated about the human body, the biomechanics, how all of that works. And I did that career for about 5 years before then I was introduced to another way of thinking and looking at the body differently based on we have asymmetries in our body and that affects our movement. So I started playing with that. And at the time I was training to qualify for the Boston Marathon, running 8 miles on the treadmill 3 times a week with an outdoor run. And I started playing with my body position and my breathing mechanics. So not like the traditional breath work where you're working on the patterns of breathing and how long you hold the breath or the inhale or the exhale. It was more, how can I change the mechanics of all of this and see what happens? And I realized all of a sudden I could run 8 miles on the treadmill, get off, and it felt like I didn't even run. I didn't have to stretch. I didn't have to foam roll. I didn't have to scrape. All those things that I was teaching people to do daily, you have to keep all these things up. I stopped doing it. And my marathon time just dropped dramatically. I dropped 7 minutes off my next time. Then the next marathon, another 7 minutes. I blew through the qualifying marks for getting into Boston.
Wow.
And and you're as a runner, it's like, whoa, wait, what did I just feel here? And so I started putting it into a process and figuring out, what did I just do to myself? And can I start to do this with other people? And that's when basically my life changed. I was terrified. And when you're kind of on the cusp of, okay, I'm going to go do something completely new. Do I do it and take the risk and somehow generate enough courage to be brave?
Scary.
Or do I just stay in my stagnant life? And I took those next steps, and there were a lot of tears that were shed. There was a lot of alone nights where I'm like, what in the world am I doing? Why am I pushing for this? But I knew I was on to something where I could possibly revolutionize the way people thought of healthcare, at least the ones that were interested in listening. And that's basically what I did. I took the next steps. I started implementing what I was doing to myself. I did it on others. I became known for what I was doing, helping people get out of major surgeries, like even knee replacement surgeries. People started flying in from around the country to come see me. Then I was hired to travel around the world with a world famous photographer to keep him out of two major surgeries, a rotator cuff tear and a knee replacement. So I gave up my whole life, gave up my job, my house, my relationship with my boyfriend at the time. I gave up everything. And I said, I'm going to go travel around the world because I love photography. I love the world. I love culture. I love meeting people. And I wanted to see if I could shift. And I did. So I went and did that for 6 months, going all the way to Arctic Norway to Antarctica. And then when I finished, I decided time to become an entrepreneur so I can share this with as many people who will listen to me as possible.
Wow, what an inspiring story. Now, you already hinted at some of that, but when you look back at your life so far, what are some of those high points and low points that really stand out to you, and what have you learned from them?
Sure. So definitely the one high point of when I got off the treadmill for the first time and I realized that I changed my nervous system so I didn't have to stretch. That was a huge one.
Hmm.
I think that another time was I decided each year to kind of push myself physically and see how much I could challenge myself. And one year, this was after I kind of developed this technique a little bit, I decided to try to run fast marathons pretty much back to back. I did one and I was able to do it in, I think, 3:29 or 3:26. And
Wow.
then 2 weeks later, run another one that was 3:29. And I realized I was able to run both of them pain free. And then a couple weeks later, I ran another 3:29, I think, in Boston. And I was able to do it pain free without issues. And
Hmm.
that was a very pivotal moment because I realized as long as I could keep my nervous system calm and under
Hmm.
control, I was like in the US, we have the cartoon, The Coyote and the Roadrunner, and the Roadrunner
Yeah.
runs really fast. Well, that's kind of how I felt. My legs could just go, and I just had this really calm body, this trunk that I could just move. And I just felt like my legs were just going under me. And that was very pivotal. And I think another instance is I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and he talks about how to switch from different quadrants. You're employed, then you're self-employed, then you're running a business, and then you are an investor. And looking at how to develop passive cash flow so that you have the freedom to do what you want, which for a lot of people in that world, it's impacting others, helping others. And once I realized that, that really gave me the impetus to become an entrepreneur. And especially after I met him and helped him, I was like, okay, I can see what he's saying. He has very valid points. And it opened me up into this personal development world on how to really change my life.
Mm, yeah, I love that. And maybe you can share some of the low points as well, just to balance that, because usually what we see on social media and everywhere, it's just the shiny successes, right? And I always like to show people that this is just, one side of the equation. You usually don't see the other side. So I like to keep it real. So can we talk about maybe one of the low points in your life as well?
Oh, there's plenty. Trust me, there's plenty. Um, I have to say, I mean, related to career wise, when I first started implementing this, I got a lot of pushback. I had doctors who told me, if you do anything related to breathing, I will not send people to you. I
Oh.
had my boss who told me, if you keep using balloons, you cannot do this. I mean, you literally, I will not let you treat this way. Um, I had people push back on me. It was hard because they did not want to go and think about things any differently. And so it was I mean, I say this in all honesty, for about 2 years, I went home and cried for most nights because I knew I could help people differently and I could see what a person needed, but I couldn't do it because the constraints from the system were on me and I couldn't do anything about it. It was either, okay, feed yourself and have a house over, roof over your head, but do the type of treatment that you were taught that is not as effective, or try to do something that is not that is more helpful, but you're going to lose your job and your safety and your security. And let me tell you, that's a big struggle.
Oh,
and at the time, I had no idea what it was like to be an entrepreneur. I had no idea how to grow a business or anything like that. And so just going through that, it was really a struggle. And there are a lot of wrinkles around my eyes from many years of tears. Let me tell you, if you look closely.
yeah, that sounds really, really tough. And it's something that a lot of people, I think, experience when they try to do something off the beaten track. If you try to think outside the box and the system is not used to the way you think about a topic or a situation, then they will push back on you. And you just have to develop the strength to not succumb to the self-doubt during the first few years of your new career, right? Because those are the ones that are so tough. And I've experienced the same thing when I started to do something that was so unrelated to what I had done before, because I'm a molecular biologist by profession. And then I ventured into the world of coaching, and it was so far out of my comfort zone. And people told me, like, don't you want to get a real job? And these kind of things where you're like, I'm trying, like, I'm really trying here. Yeah. But I don't know about you, but so many people fear pain and failure, so much so that it can absolutely paralyze them. And what I found, though, is that those initial unpleasant experiences, they often bring out the best in us because they force us to grow. And that's why I like to encourage people to think about pain and failure not as something that they need to avoid at all cost, but as necessary stepping stones on their way to success. And you don't know what you're capable of until you're tested, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
I completely agree. So there are times to push and there's times to pull back in life. We often make changes when the pain of where we're at is more than the fear of making changes.
True.
So I think when we have a certain base of support, if we have friends who are supportive, we have some comfort, I say that's when you want to push your limits, start branching out, pushing. When it becomes too overwhelming, that's when we start to get chronic pain. We start to get anxiety attacks. We start to have chronic fatigue syndrome. We start to have this frozen mode. So there is an ebb and flow. And so it's kind of working on finding what your body can handle. And that's why working with a coach is really useful, because one, you have a system, a person of support who can kind of see from the outside if you're pushing it too far and you're about to crash. So having that support system, or even an environment where you have a tribe of entrepreneurs who can also kind of keep you in check and saying, you know what, I can see that your health has degraded over the past 2 months. You have become more irritable. You are not happy. You're not smiling. So having that support system, I find, is really useful, but we need to push into pain. Like, we need to push the limits, the stress a little bit. But the thing with the stress is we are designed to be in parasympathetic relaxation and then spike up into fight or flight mode, then come back down. And that's kind of how I look at a filter of my life is, okay, I want to be as calm as possible so I can be useful in terms of my executive functions, attention, focus, creativity, imagination. But then I need to spike up to push myself, but then pull myself back down. And if I can control that, all the better, because then I can challenge myself and it doesn't take me into a tailspin somewhere else. So that's what I kind of recommend to people is, if you can look at yourself in that way, you can then start to learn how to control things better, or at least have an influence to bring things back down or to push them forward.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's also something that I work on with my clients, because we need those deliberate stresses to kind of, it's kind of like a stress inoculation, right? So you need to train the system. Otherwise, it just spirals out of control once you face something new and unexpected. So let's switch gears for a moment and talk about something we're both passionate about, which is the power of breathing and how it can help us relieve stress and pain. So can you tell our listeners why breathing patterns can help with stress and pain relief? What are the underlying physiological mechanisms that are involved in those processes?
Absolutely. So when we use our diaphragm, not everyone is dominant in using their diaphragm, but when we use the diaphragm, it stimulates a nerve called your vagus nerve, which helps get you into that parasympathetic relaxation to release the abnormal muscle hold on your body. Now, the problem is we often are used to using our ribs to breathe. We lift up our rib cage to breathe instead of allowing our diaphragm to drop down to draw air in. So there's kind of two mechanisms, and we have a spectrum. So ideally, we want the diaphragm, the dome of the diaphragm, to drop down, which creates negative pressure to air to be drawn into your lungs. If that diaphragm can't be used as strongly, we often lift up our rib cage to create negative pressure for air to draw in. Now, the problem with lifting up our rib cage or going in Superman posture where your chest is sticking out, shoulders back, the problem with that is you are cueing your back muscles along your spine to work to hold you in this overly erect posture. When that happens and you pull your shoulders back and lift up your chest, now your rib cage lifts up, which decreases support and use of your diaphragm. So when your back muscles are overly contracted with this rigid spine, those muscles are compressing on that fight or flight nervous system, which is going to tell your body to tighten up and become rigid. And it's also going to signal that you're now in a more shallow breathing pattern because you're using your ribs, your back, your shoulders, and your neck to breathe instead of using your diaphragm. So what I work with people is on dropping the rib cage down, get out of that overly Superman posture because we need the rib cage to drop down into neutral because your lower ribs being down and your side abs helping you hold those down supports the diaphragm so the dome can be stronger in its contraction to help you draw air in. And it's very soothing. When you learn to exhale and have your belly come out so your ribs drop down, you can just feel this wave of relaxation go through your body. And then over time, you can get out of the most chronic pain because you can work on releasing that fight or flight tension in your body and in your muscles so that you can then sense something else activate to stabilize you. So the more we can get your arms and legs to provide support and stability, the more you can relax your back, which allows you to stop compressing on that fight or flight nervous system, and it helps to calm you down. So your position of your body affects that fight or flight nervous system. It affects your breathing mechanics. Your breathing mechanics affects your fight or flight nervous system and your position. And the nervous system affects both your breathing and your body position. So they're all three intertwined. So when we look at breath work, it's of utmost importance that we change the body position to achieve the goal of relaxation. I hope that was clear enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so funny that we kind of have to learn how to breathe. Normally, it's something that everyone does all the time, but it seems like so many of us don't do it properly because we've never been taught how to do it properly. Maybe.
Well, it's more that when we're a kid, we're a little toddler, baby, we breathe correctly. But then we start listening to all these well-intentioned people who tell us to suck your gut up in, shoulders back, stick your chest out, be straight. As soon as we start listening to someone and doing that, now our breathing mechanics become more dominant on our ribs instead of our diaphragm, and we go into fight or flight mode. And I work with a lot of kids and their parents who the kids have ADHD or they have pain, and they have listened to their parents and they stick their chest out, shoulders back. And you can see this with kids with ADHD. Often they're on their toes. They don't know how to ground themselves. They don't know how to put their heels down because their chest is so far out, their shoulders are back, they have this straight spine. As soon as you get them to drop their chest in, relax, let their belly out, they calm down, they can relax, they can sit still.
Right. I think the first time that I really experienced that power of breath work for pain relief was when I gave birth to my two kids. So I didn't want to take any painkillers during labor because I think that they can interfere with those natural processes. But I'm also not a masochist who enjoys pain. So I opted for using a TENS machine and focused breathing. And both of that really worked well together. But I think outside of the delivery room, breathwork is still something that's not widely considered when it comes to pain relief. Although it has become much more popular during maybe the last couple of years. But personally, I've been using breathwork regularly for maybe the last 2 to 3 years now. And I found it super helpful for stress relief and calming an overactive nervous system. It definitely helped me increase my stress threshold and stay calm under pressure. And I'm using breath work with my clients too, often in combination with other techniques like visualization or affirmations or movements. And I find that this layered approach works really, really well. But breathwork is right at this intersection of physiology and psychology that really allows you to change your mental, emotional, and physical state and thus gain control over your body again. So how do you use breathwork to relieve stress in yourself or your clients? Can you maybe share one of your favorite exercises to quickly calm an overactive nervous system?
Sure, I can teach the basics of what I do. So when I work with clients, I'm working on changing their body position and their breathing mechanics together. So I have them in all different positions, hands and knees, on their sides, on their back, all these different positions. And it's a process that's based on we see in a person and how they're moving in their goals. So I don't do traditional breath work in the terms of like box breathing where you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, blow out for 4, hold for 4. What I do is an actual technique which changes your breathing mechanics, and then we work on exercise or activities that help you learn how to sense your hamstrings to stabilize you instead of your back, or learn how to sense your triceps so that you stop using your upper traps and your back to move. So it's how do we change it so you have safety and stability in your body so that your position's not activated by your back muscles, your nervous system's not activated by your back muscles. So I can teach like the basics for getting started, just like a couple little tips. So I tell people how this is to work on calming your nervous system and changing you from sympathetic to parasympathetic. So when you breathe in, always suggest breathing in through the nose because there's many benefits to breathing in the nose. Then you pause a second, you blow out through your mouth, and then you pause and hold your breath for 4 seconds. Now that's just the basics of it. Now the key is not in those timings, but the key is what are you doing to your body while you do that breath. So when you blow out, instead of sucking your gut up and in, I want you to let your belly button fall out because that gives your rib cage permission to drop in and down to allow your body to stop activating the fight or flight nervous system. And then as you work through that, you can start to feel your breastbone sink in, your armpits relax, your rib cage drops down, which gives your shoulders permission to drop down. Your low back can relax into the chair. And so as you go through that, then you can start to learn how to add to that and learn how to use your arms and legs as you practice this breathing in different positions so that you can get out of various types of pain, chronic pain, acute pain, all of those things. But there's a process that's kind of the basics. And it goes into a lot more depth that it's kind of hard to go into right here. But the key is when you blow out, let your belly fall out. Do not suck it in. The more you suck in as you blow out, you lift the ribs and you're putting yourself on tension and high alert mode. We want the belly to fall out as you blow out. And then when you inhale, you breathe in through the throat, not into the belly or not into the chest. We don't want to breathe into the belly because that's abdominal distension. It's not really diaphragmatic breathing. And we don't want to breathe into the chest because we don't want the ribs to just lift up. So we want to breathe into the throat, into the lungs. So your lungs inflate and push against your rib cage to allow you to breathe in, and then you stop using all those accessory muscles to lift up and create tension.
So when you blow out or when you exhale, do you do it just like a sigh, or do you do it like blowing out candles, or is there a special technique that you use for the exhale?
So I do have people use a straw, and I have them blow into a straw because that creates a cylinder of air,
Yeah.
which then allows the rib cage to come back into a cylinder instead of being hinged off of the low back. So we want to create that cylinder because it creates an open passage through the body and through your windpipe, basically.
Oh, great. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, we've talked about pain and we've talked about stress, but we haven't really talked about how stress and pain are connected. So, how do stress and pain influence each other?
Sure. So when we have a stressor, we usually think about the cortisol levels going up or your adrenaline going up, but actually your muscles contract because of that stressor. Let me give an example. If I pick up a pail of water right now, I can use my bicep muscle and I can put the pail down. I voluntarily use that. Now, let's say I'm standing here talking to you, and all of a sudden I'm holding that pail of water, and all of a sudden I hear a loud bang, and I jump, and I think, oh my gosh, there's a gunshot going off, outside my window. My whole body just tensed up. Even if I put that bucket of water down, my biceps is still going to be partially on, as well as the rest of my body. There's muscles that contracted that put me in this fight or flight state. That's called sympathetic tone. I can go and look outside and I can say, oh, that was a car backfiring, I'm safe. I just cleared myself mentally, emotionally, and intellectually. But if I don't pause and say, okay, release the tension from my body, release that sympathetic tone. If I don't do that, my nervous system is going to keep in that state. And my body's going to learn to keep those muscles on tension. That's an extreme example, but that happens with stressors in our life. And those stressors every day are very additive. So muscles, in response to a stress, will contract. And if I'm not aware of it, they just stay that way. And they just add and add and add. And what happens is they start to pull your bones out of position. The joints start to get pulled out of position, especially if we're standing in that over Superman posture, chest out, shoulders back, that already pulled us out of neutral. Now you have stressors adding on top of that, and the muscles start to pull the bones out of position. And so what happens is, I see this very often, someone will be just going through life, their stressors are adding up. All of a sudden they have a big whammy, maybe a fight with their boss at work, a really severe stressor. They go to bed, the next day they wake up in pain. Because that severe stressor caused them to tighten up muscles just enough that they go to bed, their muscles stay in this really tight mode, and then all of a sudden they shift positions and none of the muscles don't know how to release. And so it causes tissues to pinch together. Now the pain can't go away because the muscles can't relax, because the person can't sense that the muscles even tightened up in that way that pulled them out of position. And so that's how people can get into chronic pain, because they don't know what to let go to get them out of that position so the bones can free up. And so I get a lot of people that the doctors can't find anything wrong with them. And I'll say it's because the stressors have layered so much on top of each other. The muscles have shifted just enough that tissues butt up against each other, and you can't see on X-ray, MRI, or CAT scan. But as soon as we work on getting that person to calm down, and they have to learn to release that protective muscle contraction, and then at the same time, they have to learn how to stabilize themselves differently so they can keep that release. The bones go back in position, the muscles pain, the tissue pain goes away. And that's how you get people out of major surgeries or chronic pain. Right. But it's literally not just sitting here and breathing. It's much more involved than that. That's why it's a process. It's truly not, let's just sit here and practice our breathing and different patterns of breathing. it requires learning to use your body differently too.
Yeah, I totally get that. I think I experienced that myself as well. When I was under a lot of stress, I tend to hold a lot of tension in my shoulders and my upper back. And then I just could not release the tension. I was lying in bed and I felt the muscles were all tense, and I just could not get the muscles to release the tension until I really had to work through that, because I was there and I felt like, what is wrong with me? Why can I release this tension? Why is it so hard? But yeah, I think there's a lot of overlap, conceptual as well as physiological, between stress and pain. And from what I understand, certain breathing techniques can also increase the blood's pH level, which then in turn can deactivate these acid sensing ion channels that are important for pain transduction. So, in other words, we can actually interfere with the signal, and we're stopping the pain signal from getting registered in our brains. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that definitely is a physiological process as well. And you can use breathing for that method. Now, the key though is, if you once you stop breathing to create that effect, the pain comes back. So that's why it's important to change the body position and the nervous system. So you're actually changing the underlying contributor
Gotcha.
to that pain instead of just masking it with biochemistry or like the gate theory or those types of mechanisms. So, yes, it's great for doing that for a temporary relief, but let's try to address the other issue if we can, and if a person is willing and open to doing that.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. And what I find really fascinating in this respect is that pain has those two distinct components. A sensory component that really tells you about the location and the quality of the pain. And then you also have this emotional component. That's how you interpret the pain and what meaning you assign to it. And I find it really remarkable that those two components of pain are processed in different brain areas, and that we can kind of hack both parts of the system. So we can reduce the severity of the sensation using breath work, and we can also reduce the intensity of the emotional component by reframing how we think about pain. And that's incredibly empowering and encouraging for everyone who suffers from acute or chronic pain, because when you understand how the system works, you can leverage it to reduce your pain. Now that we have talked about stress and pain relief, maybe we can talk a little bit about high performance protocols here. How do you help successful entrepreneurs perform at a higher level?
So, part of it is working with them to almost like, if you put some glasses on and the filter is going to be your nervous system, is looking at their life and seeing, okay, how do you address stress? Are you emotionally reactive? Are you having trouble with focus, attention, performance, and energy? And how can we insert little short practices of a position and breathing mechanics change into your daily life so that you can feel your body calm down, so that improves your executive functions
Mhm.
and works on your emotional reactivity, or works on calming you so you can speak to your business, your coworkers, or on a presentation platform. So that's kind of what we do with a lot of different entrepreneurs is, what is your pain point?
Hmm.
Is it stress? Is it anxiety? Is it chronic pain? What is preventing you from performing at your optimal level? And then how do we get your nervous system under control so that you can calm it down when you need to do more thinking processes? But then you can use this breathing, you can ramp yourself up. So when you need that spike of, okay, I need a ton of energy to give this presentation, and you can be in chaotic energy, or we can pull you back a little bit so you can be energetic but controlled, so people see you as a person of authority who is not chaotic, but a person of who is grounded, who you want to be around because you have good energy, good vibration. And so that's what we want to work through. And it does take some time
It
because,
does.
you know, we have habits that are instilled in us. That nervous system is like, has its claws in us. And
Hmm.
we like to keep our steady, stable life. So we have trouble changing until the pain becomes too much.
Yeah, we really have to train that nervous system or retrain it again, right?
Yes. Yes.
I love it. It's really all about this being able to control your own internal state, to ramp it up when you need it, and to also calm you down when you need it. So it really sounds like we are both advocates for this holistic approach when it comes to health and high performance. Speaking of high performance, you have run quite a few ultra marathons, right?
Yes.
So I ran my very first marathon last year, and this year I'm actually thinking about running my first 50K ultra.
Yay.
But I don't consider myself a long distance runner. So right now, I don't know, I probably run maybe between 25 to 40K per week. And during
Okay.
summer, when it's a lot like warmer and not as miserable as right now, I usually run a bit more. So let's say I can maybe get my training up to 50 to 60K per week. Can you please share all your best tips so that I survive my first ultra marathon attempt? How should I train? What should I eat and drink before, during, and after the run? And what should I do to speed up recovery? Should I do ice bath, sauna, something else? And what else should I know or be aware of?
Oh my, I mean, I work with people and this takes hours, but I can give you a couple tips. I mean, literally I've helped people do this, and just what you want to know would take me 2 hours to explain. So,
Okay.
and to even come up with a program. Um, First tip I would say is you want to have a really solid base and work up
Hmm.
to it. Um, like for a 50K, I would be doing at least probably 15 kilometers 3 times a week. And then for a long run, you want to be, gosh, probably 40 to 50 kilometers for your long run.
Okay. Once a week.
Yes. Well, you'd work up to it.
Right.
This would be like maximum. So I'd probably get to 40 kilometers for a max run, maybe 35 kilometers for your peak run. But during the week, I would be doing probably 12 to 15K 3 times a week and then do a
Hmm.
long run on the weekend, and you'd build up to it.
Yeah.
In terms, because you want to get yourself a steady base
Hmm.
so that when you do a 50K, most 50Ks that, I mean, pretty much all of them I've done are in the hills. So you want to be used to doing hills, and you want to break up your training so you have some flat, some speed, some hills. So there's a lot that goes into it. And then of course other cross training. But for like nutrition, that's completely dependent on you. When I go out do runs, I don't eat beforehand because I want to train on an empty stomach, and I want to train to
Hmm.
use my resources because we want to mirror what's going to happen in the race as much as possible. And then the biggest thing I would say for mindset is learning how to breathe to calm down your nervous system while you're running. That's going to be your biggest asset, is changing your body position and learning kind of some of the things I was talking about to calm down your nervous system. So you're like the coyote and the roadrunner, where your legs are
Hmm.
just moving under you, because in a 50K, pain is going to crop up. And if you can use changing your body position and your breathing, and if you have front of the knee pain and you get rid of it in 2 minutes, that's going to keep you going. If you don't know how to control your nervous system, and people do this all the time without learning how to do this, so it's easily possible. But I'm just saying, to make it the easiest for you, if you can learn to change your body position and breathing on cue like that, it's going to make it much more comfortable.
Mm.
So there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, you asked a million great questions, but that's something I would need to take some hours with you on to get you fully prepared.
Okay, thank you so much for potentially saving my life.
Yeah.
And I will let you know how it went once
Yeah.
I've done it.
Yeah. Yeah. You should. You really should. It's a beautiful experience.
Yeah, I kind of ran this impromptu marathon last year. I wanted to run it, so I decided early on last year that I wanted to do it, but I wasn't quite sure when to do it because then we had the pandemic and I didn't really train as much as I wanted to. And then it was October last year, and I was like, okay, I really need to do this soon because otherwise the year is gone and I haven't done it. So I decided on a Saturday to run it on the Sunday. So the next day, I just decided, okay, without a lot of preparation and without a lot of overthinking this, I'm just going to do it. And it was quite painful. But I mean, I expected it to be painful. And it wasn't too bad. I mean, right afterwards, I thought I could probably do a 50K if I prepared for it. So yeah, let's see how it goes.
I would recommend preparing for it. It's another ball game from a marathon. Very, very different experience.
Yeah, this time I'm going to be prepared. That's for sure. So last but not least, where can our listeners find you online if they want to connect or work with you?
Absolutely. So my website is paberinstitute.com, PABR institute.com. That stands for Pain Awareness Breathing Relief. So I'm on all the social media. They can always find me. I do respond. But the best thing is if they want to connect, I do free 15-minute consults. Go on my website, sign up for one, and we can connect and see how I can help.
Fantastic. Again, thank you, Amy, so much for sharing all those tips and stories and insights with us today. I really appreciate it, and it was a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much, Claudia. I am excited for your journey. Can't wait to hear how that first ultra goes, and thanks for allowing me to come and share. It's a pleasure.
Of course. Take care and talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Wired for Success podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please take a sec to rate and review my show or share it with a friend. That way you can support the show and help me reach and support other entrepreneurs like yourself as well. If you would like my help to figure out how you can go from overwhelmed and overworked hustler to empowered and confident leader, check out my website at www.wiredforsuccess.solutions and book a free 20-minute strategy session with me. Can't wait to help you get wired for success. Until next time, take care. Bye.